why the CIA created Pokemon Go. Now, when I was 15, 16, in 2016, 2017, I used to play this. But now, I'm just finding out that this was created by the CIA. Listen, man, they already have all of my details and private information, okay? They were spying on me when I was a kid as well. God fucking damn it, man.
Most people don't know that the founder of Pokemon Go, John Hanke, received funding from In-Q-Tel, which is the venture capital firm created by the CIA. And while you and your friends were walking around your city, scanning the earth to catch your favorite Pokemon, the game's developer, Niantic Incorporated, was collecting all that data and using it to build advanced 3D maps to facilitate military attacks on third world countries. You see,
what the? Okay, I was not expecting something as drastic as this, okay?
Pokemon Go was created by the same guy who essentially created Google Earth. John Hanke was the co-founder of Keyhole, which developed a 3D digital mapping program called Earth Viewer. Keyhole's Earth Viewer 3D client application uses video game-like 3D graphics and access to massive databases of network-hosted Earth information, including satellite imagery and aerial photography, to produce an interactive digital model of the Earth. The product was unlike anything anyone had ever seen before in the early 2000s, but it was unclear what its use case would be, and therefore Keyhole was bleeding money. Every few months for years, John would find himself scrambling to raise money from Silicon Valley investors to keep the lights on. That was until In-Q-Tel saved his company from going under.
Then we got really a lifeline from a kind of unusual source. In-Q-Tel was this new little venture capital firm that was basically a government VC firm with money from the intelligence community. So that was one of the few funds in the Valley that was doing real business, and they were making a lot of investments at the time. This was in the kind of post 9/11 security ramp up period. And so they found out about our technology and invested a few $1 million in the company.
Thanks to In-Q-Tel's funding, Keyhole was supplying technology to troops in Iraq and the Pentagon, and they ultimately became a profitable company due to the massive amount of government contracts rolling in. Shortly after, Keyhole was acquired by Google in 2004, and they turned this technology into what we now know as...
No, I was thinking about this. I'm like, no, please don't, please don't. There we go. And I'm on Google Earth all the time. This is what I tell people constantly in my everyday life. There's so much stuff in our everyday life that we use that we don't really think about, like this. Like even so many people that are so brainwashed and hating each other because of politics or religion or whatever, right? Being overly obsessed with some beliefs about whatever, right? There's always something bigger, someone bigger, watching you, spying on you, using you for their benefit. There always is. And the stuff you consume, the stuff you use, the way you think, everything. And here's one great horrible example. Horrible as in, like, dark.
Google Earth. After Google's acquisition, John Hanke became the vice president of product management for the company's Geo division, where he oversaw products like Google Earth and Maps. Google Earth was revolutionary because it gave everyone access to detailed satellite imagery of nearly the entire planet from a home computer. You could explore unfamiliar cities, inspect neighborhoods before moving, and plan trips, but they quickly realized it was far more powerful than that. Humanitarian organizations began using it to coordinate disaster relief. Scientists monitored deforestation and climate change. Archaeologists used it to discover previously unknown ruins. Journalists investigated war zones, and governments used it because it was better than anything they had access to.
All of this is good.
It ended up being used in ways that we never anticipated. I guess I'll just say it that way. When Katrina happened in New Orleans, the Coast Guard was using Google Earth and Craigslist to basically find where people were trapped and send helicopters in to rescue them. Kind of crazy. You would think, well, the government, they've got lots of sophisticated software, but as it turns out, web software that's available that already has the data in it, it's ready, easy to use, a breakthrough, really.
So this was like a light bulb in their head. So if we're getting live, real data from humans by spying on them, we can, do stuff better and easily. Save lives, like this, what happened with, Hurricane Katrina and Louisiana and New Orleans, I think it was, right? New Orleans, whatever you pronounce that name. But you can also use it for evil stuff.
After working for 6 years
As
inside
corporations
Google's corporate
do.
ecosystem, Hankey wanted the freedom to combine everything he'd learned about digital maps and augmented reality to create a video game. Now, if you ask me, that seems like a crazy career change. Technically, the foundation of John's EarthViewer product started in college while working with his classmates on an open-world video game idea, but he knew the technology had much more potential, and it did. So after changing the world with his vision, creating a CIA-funded startup for military operations, and then getting acquired by a tech giant, going back to being a video game developer seems like a massive career and lifestyle change. That is, unless it was part of a larger plan. Google actually
Of course, use and bait little children so you can get more information about the world, steal their information, scan more of the world as they play Pokemon Go, basically do evil shit.
Not want John Hankey to leave the company. For whatever reason, they felt that his video game idea might become valuable to them in the future, so they convinced him to create Niantic Labs as an autonomous unit inside of Google. Basically, they gave him the freedom of creating a startup, but using all of Google's resources inside of Google's walls. If it failed, Google would get their employee back, and if it succeeded, then Google could be an early investor or part owner of a major video game innovation. Niantic's first major product was an app called Field Trip, a virtual tour guide that analyzed the user's location, provided suggestions for nearby landmarks to visit, and offered information.
And I'm a geography nerd. I know a lot about Google Maps and Google Earth, and I use them a lot, but didn't know about this.
The area. It wasn't much of a game, but it laid the foundation for their next big project called Ingress. Launched in 2012, Ingress was an augmented reality mobile game that prompts users to explore their neighborhoods and locate portals at nearby landmarks. This was quite literally the same idea as Pokemon Go. Those who played it were intoxicated by the addictive gameplay loop, although it failed to pull in a large player base even years after its release. Luckily,
and of course, what are you gonna do? You're gonna use the biggest ever longest lasting franchise, Pokemon.
For Niantic, one of the game's players would prove to be an invaluable asset with direct ties to the Pokemon Company. A Japanese Google Maps engineer named Tatsuo Nomura pitched the idea of placing Pokemon inside of Google Maps as an April Fool's joke. He traveled to Japan and got direct permission from the Pokemon Company to implement the feature. John Hankey asked Nomura to show the Pokemon Company's executive board the Ingress game. Little did they know that the president of the Pokemon Company was already a massive fan of the game. And because of this, Niantic was able to secure a partnership with Nintendo and create Pokemon Go. They launched the game on July 6, 2016, but they never could have anticipated the chaos that would come next. In just 2 months after its release, the app was downloaded over 500 million times and an estimated...
I was one of them. I still remember August 2016, riding on a 50cc scooter with a few of my friends. I was like 14, and we were like scanning for Pokemons, yeah.
21 million players logged in every single day on average. Not only had it surpassed the success of mobile games like Candy Crush or Clash Royale, but it was pulling in more...
Who the hell still plays Candy Crush? Like, maybe your 50-year-old aunt? That's the only human that I know that could play this game still.
...than websites like Twitter and Facebook. The concept was simple. You walked around your neighborhood and searched for virtual Pokemon. When you found one, the game used your phone's camera to make it look like the Pokemon was right in front of you, and you used Pokeballs to catch them and add them to your collection.
I always found this acting very cringe.
The game incentivized users to explore the world around them, offering various digital Pokestops at notable locations or landmarks.
I loved traveling to different cities and villages and random parts just to find Pokestops. I remember like bothering my dad. Like we would be in some other city because of some whatever reason. Shopping, seeing people, whatever. I'd be like, "Oh, Dad, stop!" And he'd just panic all of a sudden while driving the car. And I'd be like, "There's a Pokestop, like a few feet from that, on that side of the fucking park." I was lucky he didn't slap my ass.
Stops served as a hub.
I deserved
game
a beating.
And used special lures to attract more Pokemon. This also included Pokemon gyms. Players selected from one of 3 teams.
Oh yeah.
Would compete with rival Pokemon hunters to control areas to earn Pokecoins and buy upgrades. Pokemon Go wasn't just another mobile video game. It transformed your local neighborhood into a fantasy world. This is why it became a cultural phenomenon almost instantly.
I I remember there was also a small, I'd call it epidemic of a lot of kids just walking across the street, not checking for the lights, not checking for cars. And sadly, a lot of tragedies would happen. And this game would be a huge culprit for all of that.
Parks were overflowing with players searching for rare Pokemon.
At least people
Restaurants
are
and
active.
Stores used nearby Pokestops to advertise their businesses, and content creators were racking up millions of views just by playing the game. The game
Holy
skyrocketed
shit.
into mainstream pop culture, becoming a topic of discussion on late-night television shows, and was infamously referenced by Hillary Clinton during her 2016 presidential campaign.
I don't know who created Pokemon Go, but I'm trying to figure out how we get them to have Pokemon go to the polls.
It's safe to say Pokemon Go
That's probably the worst thing she could have said. Again, I wouldn't vote for her or Trump. I think they're all insane. But that was insanely
was
cringe.
taking over the world, but it wasn't just making headlines for its record-breaking numbers. It was also being linked to real-world accidents, life-altering injuries, and even deaths.
There we go.
Only days after the game's release, two men
Happened
were
to a few
hospitalized
people
while
I
playing
knew.
Pokemon Go. They hopped a fence to get access to a Pokemon on the other side, ignoring a sign warning pedestrians of the unstable ground.
Bro, kids are insane. Like, they will literally see, hey, like, you can imagine in Australia, and I've heard of a story like this. Like, it said, hey, don't swim in these waters, or don't go to this beach because of crabs nesting, because of something else, because of, I don't know, sharks, or a recent shark spotting, and they would just leap the fence. They would go, they wouldn't give a shit. Hey, listen, I've got a Pokemon there. There's a Pokestop there.
On a
Evil.
nearby cliff,
Insane.
which both men eventually fell down. The players
Men.
sustained serious injuries, but fortunately survived. Others were not so lucky. A truck driver in Japan hit two women while playing Pokemon Go, severely injuring one and killing the other. Players of the game began to find themselves
This is
in
what I'm
increasingly
saying.
dangerous situations as both drivers and pedestrians were getting distracted by the app. And the more people became immersed in the world of Pokemon, they lost touch with the world around them. Players began disrupting religious services and funerals. The Holocaust Museum in Washington, D.C. asked people to stop playing the game inside of
Come
their
on,
establishment.
man.
Players
Come on, man. So, this fucking company, the guy who created this now, right, is the guy who created Google Earth. But somehow he didn't they couldn't try and work out to, like, maybe remove institutions, remove museums, remove certain places, so they wouldn't get, you know, stuff like this wouldn't be generated there, you know, Pokestops and stuff and Pokemon to fight with, right? They couldn't, like, that wasn't impossible to do back then, okay? That was available technology.
were also being disruptive at the Arlington National Cemetery, causing problems for grieving families and members of the military paying their respects. As you can imagine, after Pokemon
Also,
Go,
think of the people doing this. Like, I know kids are, kids are insane. They a lot. Their moral compass is still forming. You know, a lot of them are idiots. I still am. But like adults doing this and going to these kinds of places, and this was like just forgetting about other humans existing between them.
exploded in
lock 'em
popularity,
up.
the video
Just put 'em
game
in jail.
industry became extremely interested in learning more about the developers. John Hankey of Niantic Labs was interviewed in front of a live audience at TechCrunch in San Francisco and seemed like he could not be less interested.
First and most importantly, what team are you on?
He doesn't even know.
I'm yellow. I'm all about the yellow. Yeah.
Me too.
Yeah.
Team Instinct, anyone out there?
Yeah.
Bro, he wants to fall asleep.
Team Instinct, there we go. I'm not going to try and button that back up on stage.
It's crazy that the creator of the game couldn't even properly answer the question, what team are you? Which refers to one of the 3 factions players can join once they reach level 5. Team Valor, which is red, Team Mystic, which is blue, or Team Instinct, which is yellow. He just said, the yellow one. The interviewer was clearly a massive Pokemon fan, and Hankey seemed like the total opposite.
He was like, oh god, this fucking nerd. I want to go home, see my family, jerk off.
Pointing to players that the most viral game of 2016 surrounding one of the most beloved IPs of all time was being spearheaded by a boring corporate suit. But what was particularly interesting was his insights on working with governments before they launched the game in different countries.
So we're still in the rollout phase of the game.
Do you know what the next rollout country is going to be?
I have a pretty good idea, but it is pending getting things squared away on the government relations side and getting everything prepared, so I can't say right now. It has been interesting that we didn't really anticipate the level to which it would attract interest from government people and policy people and things like that, but that's become part of the dialogue at this point, so we're getting more well-versed in those skills.
Now, we don't really know what interests governments had with the game. Now, I'd imagine governments had obvious concerns, like tens of thousands of people gathering in parks, people blindly walking into traffic, etc. But Hankey didn't use the word concerns. He said interests. Another thing to note was that...
Listen, and this is a dark truth. When you don't live in a high-trust society, where there's a country with different religions, different cultures, different all of this, most of the time, the government is sus and untrusting of multiple types of people. It is what it is. That's sadly the dark truth. And they want to spy on you. And this became even a company thing, a private company thing. They want to spy on you. They want to collect your private information and all of this. Yeah, the government's going to have your private information. That's a no-brainer. You can't escape that, They're going to know, you'll have to pay taxes for your properties. Of course they know where you fucking live. You know what I mean? But it's just becoming a more and more bigger issue these days. It's just, I don't think, is there even a high-trust society these days out there? Maybe Norway? Maybe
South Korea
Finland?
refused to let Google export its detailed government map data to foreign servers out of fear that it could expose military bases and other sensitive locations to North Korea, which made Pokémon Go nearly impossible to launch across most of South Korea. China also heavily regulates foreign access to geographic data and blocked Google Maps entirely because it considers detailed mapping a matter of national security. In other words, while most players saw Pokémon Go as a harmless mobile game, entire governments were already treating the data underneath it like a potentially dangerous military asset. The question is, did Niantic Labs know that they were wielding a dangerous military asset? Well, there was this controversy that came up where iPhone users discovered that signing in through Google gave Niantic full access to their accounts. Per Google's own description, this meant access to both view and modify anything in the account. To many, they believed that this meant unfiltered access to their images, videos, and emails, although it wasn't that simple. Niantic stated that it only had access to the user's IDs and email addresses, and Google personally verified that no additional information was given to the company. So since...
Listen, everybody's on the internet. If you're on the internet, it's already too late. And everybody is. And I'm here filming videos, posting them to YouTube, which is owned by Google. So, yeah. Either you're going to live off-grid and never use electricity, anything electric in your life, or you're going to choose the modern luxuries, but you'll have to be okay with, to a certain degree of, companies and governments stealing your private information.
Niantic couldn't steal the data just by someone making an account, they had to trick users into giving it up for free. And what resulted was one of the most ambitious geospatial data collection projects ever hidden behind a mobile game. One whose technology would later facilitate devastating military operations. 4 years after the game's release, Niantic introduced...
I was thinking maybe this was used to explore more of the world and maybe update more of Google Earth and all of this stuff, but that was way before this whole video started explaining everything.
Interesting new feature,
how everything happened
AR
in order.
Mapping tasks. Pokestops marked by notable landmarks would now offer users rewards if they completed AR scanning prompts. These required players to scan the surrounding area with their phone's camera for about 20 to 30 seconds. Interesting that this feature was not available for children's accounts. From the player's perspective, the feature was relatively harmless. They had already become accustomed to Pokemon Go.
People weren't that that aware of stuff like this. Okay, most people still aren't very aware of stuff like this. Like a lot of older people, like my parents being 50 years old, you know, they don't know about this stuff. I'm very aware of what's happening with ID verification and all of this.
Their location and having access to their cameras. So when Niantic offered free rewards with the promise of game improvements, players were eager to take part. Niantic claimed that the data collected would inform the game's engine to understand the depth and complexity of the real world. This would make for a way more immersive experience, in which virtual objects could seamlessly integrate with the world around them. In hindsight, it seems like an evil genius plan. The man who created Google Earth and worked directly with the CIA and international intelligence organizations was getting people to voluntarily 3D scan the world around them while they think they're just helping Niantic make a better...
Bro, just think of people with 3D scan their schools, their hospitals, their homes.
Pokemon game. These scans would help develop a much larger technology called Lightship VPS, which stands for Visual Positioning System. The satellite-based technology of GPS was useful, but not optimized for the best augmented reality experience. For example, it might be able to tell you that you're near a statue, but it's typically incapable of understanding where you are relative to the landmark, whether you are behind it or in front of it, if you are 3 feet away or 30 feet away. This information isn't important when getting general directions for a road trip, but when it comes to making accurate drone strikes on enemy base camps without harming innocent civilians, it can make a massive difference. When players scanned a landmark, they recorded more than just a video. It tracked the latitude, longitude, and altitude of the user's device. It also utilized the phone's accelerometer and gyroscope, allowing the system to consider the phone's position and orientation. Considering all of this data, the scans could be used to make reliable inferences about the user's distance from...
So these fucking companies, well, this specific company, can put Pokestops in important places and institutions in countries. People would scan them and they would collect that information so they can use them. Hey, we know all of these important places in this country, in this city. We can use this in war if we need to. Well, this was specifically also, this guy mentioned in the beginning, this was specifically more for third world countries.
The landmark itself and the surrounding environment. Every scan submitted was unique, taken at different angles, positions, and distances. Each video was divided into approximately 300 individual images, all of which were...
This is why I think TikTok probably has something evil behind it, because it, you know, it comes from China. Yeah, was it bought partially or fully by some US... I don't know, but yeah.
Together with other scans to create a full 3D digital map of the area. Essentially,
that's why I'm telling you, so many beliefs, political, religious, anything new that comes out, be sus of it, question everything. I don't care if you're right or left leaning or centrist, question everything. Okay? Statistics, a lot of people blindly trust statistics. Okay, all the time I say some statistics are probably true. I just don't trust most of them. I just don't. A lot of the times they might be biased to push some kind of an agenda. You know, if this video isn't making you question everything, I'm sorry.
Creating the world's largest, most detailed 3D scan of the entire world, and Pokemon Go players were helping for the most innocent intentions. VPS could compare the player's live footage against this virtual world to determine the player's exact location, which helped influence where objects and Pokemon would be anchored within the real world. Think about how NPCs in Grand Theft Auto sometimes mindlessly walk around with no intention or logic applied to them. Pokemon Go was similar initially, but with this new technology, the Pokemon could now be programmed to interact with their surroundings. Instead of being mindlessly placed on the ground, they would be able to hide behind the landmarks or even climb on top of them. Put simply, the goal of this technology was to make a near-perfect replica of the world the way that humans would experience it, so that the Pokemon in the game could literally interact with the world the same way a human might. And players were willing to sacrifice 30 seconds of their day if it meant free rewards and a better experience down the line. And by November of 2022, Niantic Niantic revealed that they had developed more than 120,000 digital maps of various locations throughout the globe. But technology this powerful would be wasted if it were only used for Pokemon Go, and Niantic understood this deeply. While they stated their goal was always to give people tools to become 21st century explorers, it felt like they were leaving a massive opportunity on the table. But VPS also had a major limitation. The system was only able to recognize information it had already been given. If a landmark had only been scanned from the front, the model would not be as effective when used from behind. And if it had received no prior information on a landmark, there was nothing the model could work with to provide an immersive experience. They had now gathered enough data for 1 million different waypoint locations to have full VPS integrations, but there were still millions of locations that had not been fully scanned. Niantic sought to fix this issue with their large geospatial model announced in 2024. The goal was to take all of the combined data they had collected and use AI to make inferred guesses about partially unscanned locations. Niantic uses a church as an example. If players had only scanned the front of a particular church, the VPS technology might be unable to recognize footage taken from behind, but the large geospatial model could infer based on thousands of other churches that had been fully scanned and make an educated prediction about what the back of that specific church would actually look like. Humans have the ability to do this naturally. We are capable of applying our personal lived experience to make inferences about our environment. If I showed you the front of a house, you could probably make a pretty good guess about what the back of it looks like. You might not get every detail right, but you'd expect windows in roughly the same places, a back door, maybe an AC unit, a fence, or a patio. Your brain does not know that specific house. It's recognizing patterns from thousands of houses you've seen before. Niantic wanted AI to learn that same instinct, but with near perfect precision. And only months after announcing their large geospatial model, Niantic made the shocking decision to sell Pokemon Go. While Scopely Incorporated acquired the rights to Niantic's catalog of games for $3.5 billion, Niantic retained all of the data, research, and technology they had been developing over the last decade, which includes their VPS and geospatial models. In other words, they kept their most valuable IP, sold the rest of their got the data, and were ready to move on, leaving Pokemon in the dust, which to some makes it seem like they never cared about Pokemon in the first place, and it was all a part of a...
They never did. Okay? You shouldn't be surprised by this. I mean, I get people back then, right? But today, people shouldn't be surprised by this. It's like how YouTube sadly is treating creators. How bad the YouTube AI is, and how easily a lot of people are getting false copyright strikes or falsely being demonetized. Then if you want to get help from YouTube and, you know, lift the monetization or whatever it is, because it's something that clearly isn't your fault, you know, then this happens. YouTube also pushes a lot of short form just to compete with TikTok and Instagram Reels. Meanwhile, most people watch YouTube for long forms, right? Maybe newer generations watch more YouTube for short form, but all of these companies, they know this is damaging for the human brain. They know that long term, this is going to create issues in society. They don't care. They don't care. They see the profit, and that's all they care about. And they want to be the dominant player in their industry. It is what it is.
Bigger operation. The company shifted its focus away.
And a lot of the times, a lot of the times, there is some kind of a evil secret incentive. It is
away
like
from
this.
Video game development, and under the leadership of John Hankey, began working on Niantic
Is this San
Spatial.
Francisco?
The company made it clear this technology had far more potential than improving augmented reality experiences. It had the ability to help both humans and machines to understand the world and navigate it. Instead of figuring out where to spawn Pokemon, the technology could be used to train a robot or AI-powered vehicles to determine their locations without the use of GPS. Like, you know how outside of your town, you don't really know where you're going or where you are, but thankfully you have access to GPS on your phone. Well, they're working on a technology for machines, robots, or vehicles that would essentially install a perfect one-to-one understanding of the entire world. So you could theoretically place it anywhere and it'll know exactly where it is and exactly how to get where it needs to go in the fastest way possible.
So would that mean that they would also have a lot of information of a lot of people's homes inside, because they've scanned a lot of their places in a lot of their homes for because of the game? Would that also mean they would have a lot of stuff from inside a lot of institutions as well? Yeah.
Initially, this tool was being
Effed
marketed
up.
as something that could enhance manufacturing, warehousing, logistics, construction, tourism, entertainment, and education. Like a warehouse worker could use the VPS technology to navigate the facility and streamline the process of conducting inventory management instead of just like walking around the building.
At that point, you're gonna get an AI robot that's gonna eventually like remove you from that job and replace you.
And understanding where things are and where they need to go. But Niantic was also getting involved in areas that most might not have expected. This became clear when Niantic Spatial announced it was teaming up with a company called Vanter in December of 2025. While Niantic had its roots in the gaming industry, Vanter had always been a part of the intelligence and defense sectors. They are best known for creating mapping systems used by military commanders and soldiers to analyze the battlefield and coordinate. This partnership may seem bizarre on the surface, but it was actually a perfect match. Vanter had developed a visual positioning system called Raptor. Similar to VPS, Raptor was capable of determining its location by analyzing its environment and making inferences. When a drone became disconnected from GPS signal, it could utilize Raptor to assess the roads, buildings, and hills to figure out its position relative to Vanter's own personal map. However, the technology was relatively limited as it gathered data from airborne drone footage, meaning its pool of data was limited to the sky. This is where the partnership really starts to make sense. VPS system did everything Raptor did, but on the ground floor. Specifically, it gave the same tools to both troops on the ground as well as AI-controlled robots and vehicles. With Vanter in the sky and Niantic on the ground, the two companies hope to create a shared digital map that can be used by drones, vehicles, and people with or without the use of GPS to stay connected. Was Niantic developing weapons or making decisions in regards to active combat? No, but they were playing a role that is arguably just as important. They were helping AI-powered drones understand where they were and help them stay coordinated with personnel on the ground. Technology originally marketed as a way to make your Pokemon catching experience more immersive was now helping drones, vehicles, and soldiers coordinate on the battlefield.
Isn't it true? And I've heard this from multiple sources. I don't know if it's true, so I'm asking people watching this video. Is it true that like the military is like at least twice or way more levels above when it comes to their technology compared to what the people have, right? So if, you know, the people had the technology of the iPhone 5 in 2000 whatever, the army would have that technology 20 years before, maybe more.
Niantic has continued to become a more prominent part of the defense sector. Recently, the visual...
And now we're losing more and more control over technology, and it's going rogue. And there's a lot of the times, and I don't know if they're true or not, but a lot of the times I hear about random instances of AI going rogue and doing dumb shit, and the people not knowing what's happening and not having full control over it. A lot of AI CEOs or artificial intelligence experts saying we need more control over this and more guardrails over this, you know?
Positioning system received awardable status through a federal marketplace, Tradewin Solutions, meaning that government agencies were able to negotiate deals and purchase the technology for their own use. And taking a look at Niantic Spatial's website, they appear to have struck deals with the United States Coast Guard and the Air Force. So this isn't some kind of crazy conspiracy theory. The data they gathered through Pokemon Go was used to develop mapping technology that is literally being used by the military. I'm not sure how many Pokemon Go players who agreed to participate in AR scanning would have done so knowing that this was going to be used for the military, which is why now tons of players feel like they were straight up lied to. When Niantic first introduced the AR scanning feature, the company was transparent.
Millions of people have filmed millions of parts around the world using every single social media you can think of. How do you not think that, you know, YouTube creators, TikTokers, Instagram creators, all of this, even Facebook, right, filming themselves in multiple places around the world and so on, how do we know that that also isn't used somehow? And it probably is for similar purposes, like this. I need to move to the Amazon and live with some kind of a tribe, okay? And go fishing and hunting every day. That's what I have to do.
about their intentions to an extent.
Kind of.
It told players that these scans would be used to create a better gaming experience, and while they did make it clear that this data would be used in apps outside of Pokemon Go, I'm not sure if anyone expected military defense applications, which is why it seems as though this was always the purpose of creating this technology. When you think about it, Niantic was never really a game developer. They have always been a mapping company. Think about their origins. John Hankey's first business, Keyhole, had direct ties to the CIA, and he later went on to work a high-value job in Google's Geo division. He always has been aware of the massive price tag governments are willing to place on data, and with Pokemon Go, Niantic had access to information that wasn't available anywhere else. Pokemon Go was meant to be a family-friendly experience. It drew players in with the promise of getting to be fully immersed into a core part of their childhood in a way they never could before. It was also a defining part of many of Gen Z's childhoods. But
yep, same with me.
The dark reality is that if Pokemon Go proved anything, it's that you were never actually playing a game.
Yep, the game was playing us, right? That's what he was
playing you. And if
Yep. Anyway, tell me what you guys think in the comments. I just watched some depressing video about factories in Shine doing some evil stuff. Again, another company. And now I watched this. And it's 1:22 a.m. Yeah, I film videos late and I edit and all of this stuff live because I'm busy throughout the day. I just ruined my night. Tell me what you guys think in the comments. Question everything. Don't trust anything. As I say all the time, that's like the biggest message I want to push with both of my channels. My other channel is in the description. So yeah, tell me what you think. Have a nice day.